Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Newforum. We're dedicated to bringing you accessible and insightful conversation with visionaries, creators, developers, and investors shaping the world of crypto, the metaverse, NFT, and everything Web3. Today, we have the privilege of hosting the amazing dream team from Friends with Benefit. We'll explore all things Friends with Benefit, including their upcoming festival, FEST, one of the first DAO-run cultural festivals focused on internet culture, and we will get a glimpse of their other exciting projects. It's an absolute delight to have you here. Welcome to this episode.
Thanks for having us.
Amazing. What are your roles? And if you could just tell us a bit about your background and how you got into Web3, just a quick one.
Yeah, AD, you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. I'm KD or Kaitlyn. I feel like KD is my internet life LARP. My background is in the music industry. I was sort of always interested in the relationship between tech and music and culture, and sort of in light of streaming remuneration models starting to be discussed, I was really interested in exploring new models for things, and I stumbled into crypto and very specifically into FWB. I was lurking in a Discord server for a while and reading through everyone's introductions and being like, oh my God, all of the smartest people on the internet are in here. I guess now I am full-time making FEST happen. I've been working on the talks, experiential, and workshop programming for the last few months, as I did last year for our first FEST. And prior to that, I was sort of handling day-to-day all aspects of our membership. Zhang, Paul?
All right, I'll go. So, hey, I'm Paul. I'm based in LA. I've actually been on here before, so hello to everyone again. But my background is in music industry. I ran a record label, I'm Sound, for a long time. Morphed into a creative and marketing agency, working with a ton of folks in the music industry, musicians, everyone on interesting marketing campaigns, and doing a lot of experiential and doing a lot of events. I started getting into Web3 a few years ago, and I've been a member of FWB for about 2.5 years now. And I joined the team to work on all the events about 1.5 or 2 years ago. And I help oversee all of the kind of major what we call the centralized events, as opposed to all the other really incredible decentralized events we have all over the world. But I work across all the different major conferences that we appear at, FWB FEST, of course, and just kind of anything and everything that we do events wise.
What's up? I'm Alex. I am the mayor of Friends with Benefits, and my role is essentially, sort of leading the DAO and the DAO ecosystem through, continuing to figure out and explore what it is and isn't, and what it can be. I think my background has been in sort of large scale culture and technology and event production. I've organized massive sort of conferences and festivals, and I've always been really passionate about how different groups of people with different perspectives and backgrounds could come together, exchange knowledge, exchange experiences, for the sake of sort of creating, more connected and sort of bigger and better worlds. I joined Friends with Benefits 2 years ago as well, through Trevor, who actually founded and started it, as I was really beginning my sort of Web3 journey, and Friends with Benefits was really that sort of welcoming safe haven space where you can kind of ask questions, learn, and it felt like the most kind of culturally resonant sort of docking point, as opposed to traditional DeFi vibe, crypto Twitter, and felt like a really, really inclusive kind of arts and culture first space, where we all got to kind of participate in that first NFT boom 2.5, 3 years ago, to what it is today.
Amazing background. And I guess currently what the trend on your Twitter is the Fest. And I'd love for us to dive into that and talk a bit more about what's the vision, what's the mission, and what's it all about?
Yeah, happy to kind of kick that off. I think firstly, just for folks who might not be super familiar or aware of what Friends with Benefits is, I think, on its outset, it might look and feel like any other sort of, internet community or internet native community that many different folks are part of. But I think from day one, we've always viewed it as something a little bit more unique and sort of special in that we really think of FWB as like a collective intelligence network. It's this sort of group of folks from all different cultural industries and backgrounds and perspectives who, have gathered and convened around a shared interest for where the internet is going and how the role that sort of crypto and Web3 plays in that. I think what was novel in sort of the inception of it, which Trevor McFrederick started about 2.5, 3 years ago, was this idea of what does shared value look like in sort of internet native communities and online networks. This idea that we're all gathering, all of us have participated in various different communities and forums and in digital environments since we were old enough to hang out on computers, and really interested in how that value, that sort of value and input we bring to these networks, what are ways to meaningfully reward and incentivize those networks to collaborate and create things together. Over the course of a weekend, as crypto and ERC20 specifically started to evolve, Trevor created the FWB token as a way to sort of enumerate and sort of incentivize and distribute that value to the holders and participants in that network, which at the time was a Discord channel. The Discord channel was 20 people, 30 people, grew into 100, 200, 500, 1,000, to where it is now about 4,000, 5,000 members who hold the FWB token and participate in an entire ecosystem that sort of blossomed out of this shared desire of creating a better internet and new digital spaces for our community. And from that, there's been hundreds of events organized all over the world by community members, to our own social networking platform, to editorial and content. And it's all really exciting because it's bottoms up and it's playing with this idea of, can users or contributors of a network create sort of the value and the contents that then the rest of the network is able to sort of like engage in, sort of this like headless brand creation that we've all been really interested in sort of studying. And our sort of biggest project and undertaking, after throwing these hundreds of various different events and, millions and millions of connectivity points formed over FWB's history, is what does that look like in a much more concentrated environment over the course of 3 days in a physical location. I think with the rise of all these conversations around network states and these ideas of like values aligned physical congregations, we're really interested in like, what do temporary network states look like? And so I think it's safe to say that we might be one of the first festivals or convenings that has emerged entirely from an internet native sort of group in a DAO that is now producing sort of an annual event series using its own cultural currency to sort of bring together the best in class performances, lectures, talks, experiences as a way to really create that annual mass gathering for all the touch points of the FWB ecosystem to come together, celebrate, learn, share, and continue to define what FWB is or isn't. And I'll pass it over to either Paul, who's leading all the operations behind the event, and Nick KD, who's leading a lot of the programming and the talks and sort of the content behind the event, to maybe, share their perspective or take sort of the next question.
Yeah, it's probably also worth mentioning, when you're talking about the sort of origins of FWB, Alex, that was end of 2020. Everybody was very much still at home, trapped in their bedrooms on their computers. The Discord was on fire. Several people are typing energy all the time. And as sort of the world, I guess, defrosted a little bit in towards the end of 2021 and into 2022, I think, to borrow FWB member David Rudnick's phrasing, we were all kind of trying to balance this idea of he has this concept of physical and digital prime, and that up until probably 10 years ago, most of us valued things that happened to us physically much more than we valued things that happened to us digitally. And perhaps people like Gen Zers understand digital prime a lot better than some of us do. But I think as we started to thaw back into the real world, we started to realize digital experiences are super valuable. And how do you balance a digital and a physical prime sort of value proposition? So I think that Fest is a really interesting, probably right at that crossroads. So I think, again, not to keep name dropping FWB members, but Yancey Strickler last year after Fest said he felt it was I forget the phrase he used, internet summer camp or something. He was like, everybody on the internet was here. And what does that mean? Like, but I think it all resonated with us who were there. And it felt like that. It felt like Twitter feeds IRL.
Yeah, I mean,
I remember the first real like large FWB event that I worked on was our NFT NYC party, October 2021. And that was funny because that was the first real time that I was able to meet so many members and a bunch of the other core team and everything in person. And it was that NFT NYC feels really crazy because that was like the first like major kind of coming out moment for a lot of people. Like after, I mean, like, you know, there were still surges and all that kind of stuff, but for like a brief moment, everyone was like, oh, it's almost over. And everyone was partying and everyone was out, and everyone was seeing each other. And it was the kind of thing where no matter how much you talk online and no matter how often you talk and everything, there's absolutely nothing like just being able to hang out with a person and like grab and sit down in a room and have a drink and chat and all this kind of stuff that like I think is, you know, it almost got a little bit lost because we got so internet for a while, and especially in early COVID. And I think it was a long time coming for us to create FWB Fest, but definitely it was like moments like that which I think inspired all of us who were so happy and excited to kind of see everyone that's okay, like let's take this kind of energy and let's take this like joy and like the fact that you can put all these like internet friends together and you can still have all the same like memes and jokes and everything, and but put it in like the real room together and a real situation, and like kind of like take what we have on our Discord server but like create a real life version of it. And that was kind of the dream from the beginning. So I think it was like those kinds of initial moments really sparked it for us. It was like, okay, like how do we actually take this beyond just like one small party in New York or one party we did in like Miami for Art Week? Like let's actually not just have it be something where there's other cool conferences going on and FWB throws a party for it, which is fun, but let's actually create something that people come to and have it be where it's not like you're going to some place and, oh, like, hey, I'm going to go see this dinner and I'm going to go meet this person and I have 10 other parties to go to. But like, let's go somewhere where everyone is coming to go to an FWB event. Everyone wants to meet each other and we're like there, and that's all you're doing. And you're like, it's like going for the pure enjoyment of it. Like to me, it's almost like the difference between like watching a movie in a theater and then watching a movie at home where you're like constantly looking at your phone. Like I can enjoy a ton of movies at home, but I'll still be checking Wikipedia or checking Instagram every 10 minutes because I have my like ADD brain. But like when you go to a movie theater and you're forced to not look at your phone, it's a totally different experience and you kind of get it like pure in your brain. And I think that's kind of a bit of a difference where it's like it forces you to concentrate on what's in front of you and forces you to just kind of enjoy it, and you enjoy it to a totally different level.
Wonderful. I'm definitely all for in real life meetups and connection. And it's really interesting to know that we are trying to, you know, make the internet a better place, right? Like in terms of infrastructure and all of that. But then we still cannot take out the physicality of it, right? We still want to meet in person to talk about these things. And as you were all speaking, you said a lot about like everyone and everyone. So I'm curious to know, who are the target audience for this event? Is it really everyone? Is it just FWB members, token holders? How does that look like for someone who is interested in attending or participating in the event?
I think this is the first event where we're being a lot more explicit and direct about like, this is really meant for everyone who's interested in where the internet is heading. I think we're really designing this festival to be a lot more about the intersection. You know, I think we're calling it sort of a, you know, internet exposition, 3 days of ideas and culture and art. And it's really meant to be this space where if anyone who's interested in the convergence of all these different categories can come participate and learn, and realizing that we actually want crypto and Web3 to be a lot more inclusive in terms of welcoming everyone. And that's what historically these bear market times are for. When there's a lot lower activity, it's actually a really interesting and healthy time to rethink, like maybe we were using a lot, like too much insider language or too much like we weren't being as inclusive with our onboarding. And you know, it was very, very, you know, FOMO driven, right? Oh, you missed out. And I think now it's almost a period of time to say like, cool, like we all think the tech is interesting. I think that's what brings us all here. We're all here because we think it does create new opportunities for creatives, for artists, for technologists. This idea of, you know, of a global decentralized shared blockchain and all the different, you know, applications that can be built on top of that, and what that means for creatives or you know, of all types. And so if that's interesting to you and you're interested in like where things are going, we are designing Fest to be a place for you to feel super welcome.
Yeah, I think to that point, like I really think of FWB as a container, and it's hard sometimes to name the individual things or people that are in that container. Like I feel so many other festivals or conferences, whether that's something like even something as like big as Glastonbury or something as like, you know, in many parts of the world, like NFT NYC is niche, you know? And the Fest is like, Fest caters, there's something for everybody, I think. And like, I think that it's hard to even say like, oh, technologists or oh, people working in music or oh, digital artists, because it's like, yes, it is for all of those people. And I think that what has always, you know, sort of created the container that is FWB is people who are really like interested in pursuing like a better internet and like a better or more like interesting ways to create culture.
Paul, do you want to add something?
I think that this year really is like kind of the step forward we had always envisioned for FWB Fest. I mean, last year was smaller and it was our first year, and you know, we were learning and we learned a lot of lessons, all this kind of stuff. But it was definitely much more kind of like member focused, much more like, okay, let's see what we can do in this like crazy campus that we're going to be on, and just kind of like take it step by step. And we were really happy with how it went last year, and this year is just kind of the natural evolution of that, where of course like there's still a huge focus on our members, and we have like a members day where everyone can come and talk specifically about FWB, and it's focused on kind of those core ideals. But we want to expand it beyond just talking about Web3, to be honest, and just about blockchain, to be able to talk about kind of like new like internet technologies and internet culture in general. And that's why this year, you know, we invited all these different collaborators to come on board and work with us. And, you know, we want to do it where it's not just all about FWB, to be honest, but like FWB is like the vehicle or the lens that people can view and discuss and collaborate through to work across the internet as a whole. So, you know, last year was year one and it was great, but this year I think really represents what the vision that we originally had for Fest and how we want to kind of like push it forward and for coming years.
Thank you, Paul. You talked about partnerships, a bit about collaboration and partnerships, and you are partnering or co-creating the Fest with some super notable entities. And I am super curious to know how you manage such an impressive collaboration. Are all these partners part of the Friends with Benefit community? And also, what should we expect from the partnerships or partners?
I'll let Katie kind of share a little bit more about exactly what they're doing, but I think a vision, I just want to add like a vision we had around this event always from day one is we wanted Fest to be a lot more pluralist and a lot more sort of collectively owned. I think we even are dropping FWB from the name internally a lot and externally and just calling it Fest, in that we want this to feel like a coming together of all these internet native groups. And we've done the hard part, which is we're renting out a 200-acre liberal arts campus in the woods, and we're bringing like Carolyn Polachek and Yves Tumor and a bunch of like incredible artists and talent and amazing speakers. But the rest is like really up for the collective communities to define and build. And so we have like over 15 community partners coming, giving them spaces, giving them, you know, allowing for them to bring their communities, because we really have this larger vision of kind of creating this like temporary city of sorts, and understanding that a city has neighborhoods and neighborhoods are defined by different vibes. And yeah, I mean, Katie, maybe even share a little bit of like what some of the partners are doing to kind of even provide a little bit more color of like what's going to be going down.
Yeah, of course. And like to that end, like because so many of these people are already in FWB, it's like, it's not like you went through the Seed Club cohort and then you joined FWB, or you're in Boys Club and you're in FWB, or you contributed to Zorazine and you're an FWB, you know, like it's not like any of these things are mutually exclusive. So yeah, we're doing some like very, very fun stuff with our collaborators this year. I'm super excited. Meta Label is coming out and we're working on a zine. We're going to co-edit it together at the festival. Boys Club is coming out and bringing their trivia night, which I believe has only happened in New York before. Really excited about that. A bunch of folks are coming out to lead what we call a required reading, which is group discussions facilitated by experts. And we ask the experts to provide reading materials for the audience. So we were kind of interested in this idea of, rather than like a panel that ends in a Q&A, and by the end of the Q&A, your brain is buzzing and you're like, wow, I wish we could start the conversation here, start the conversation at the end of the Q&A, you know, and really dig in. So folks from Scene Club and Zorazine are going to be facilitating that style of conversation. And yeah, a few other surprises.
Exciting. And I would love to know, I think you've said a lot about like the vision and you know, the purpose and everything, but if I came to the event, what should I leave with in terms of like knowledge, insights, connections, experiences that I should leave with after the 3-day?
I'm curious what you left with last year, guys. Like I can share what I left with, but like last year, I feel like there was like a collective high of like 2 to 3 weeks. Like what comprised of that high?
I mean,
I think for me, it was like when so much of your life is online. And then I think for a lot of us, like let's say our IRL friends don't necessarily get it or don't necessarily understand what we do, or they're kind of like, oh, cool, like you're doing something with crypto, cool. Or like, you know what I mean? There's a lot of that kind of stuff, and not in like a negative way, but it's, you know, I don't want to bore half my friends sometimes by going into some like diatribe about this or that. And so it's like there's certain times when this kind of stuff can be a little bit compartmentalized. It was really incredible coming out of Fest last year to like get reminded that there's a ton of other really incredible people who feel the same way and who are building and are working and doing all this kind of stuff that are, even though I talk to them on Slack and Discord and email all the time, it just feels more real when you see them in person. And I think also I think one of the highlights of it was the fact that a lot of the folks who I met or who I've talked to but hadn't met in real life, and anyone's like, oh, cool, like you're like the kind of person I would legitimately be friends with on a normal level anyways. And it was a kind of thing where everything was kind of like, you know, rolling. And I was like, okay, cool. Like it's sometimes you feel a little alone doing some of this stuff. And it's like, okay, it's not that alone. Like you see all these other incredible people who you find out are your friends are friends and friends are friends of friends. And they're all like, everyone knows each other and everyone is just kind of like building together. So I think it was just really kind of rediscovering and strengthening kind of the community aspect of it for me was really important. I mean, I think of course like I like learned a lot of stuff in the talks, and it was really just like great to like try and like galaxy brain out some ideas and stuff like that with people. And there's like that was always going to happen. But I think the biggest takeaway for me was just kind of like, okay, cool, like this is like a legitimate, real, you know, I don't want to call it a movement because that sounds a little like, you know, grandiose, but I think it's just kind of it feels awesome to kind of be reminded that there's all these other people who are doing the same thing, and it's more than just like a name on the screen.
Yeah, I would totally echo that. And like I think there's something actually really profound about your internet friends like being your friends in real life basically from the second you meet them in person. Like I think it felt like everybody who I met at Fest, which was like most of the people there that I hadn't met in person before, it was just like immediately like jump in, inside jokes, like, and it was like, wow, this is crazy that I think people kind of overlook that sometimes because it just feels like we're like moving through things at such a rapid pace. But like I very much came up in like internet forums, and I remember like meeting up with people in person and being like, whoa, this is, I mean, I look back on that, I'm like, what were my parents thinking letting me do that? But it was great. It was, you know, I think that like solidified some of my like very early friendships. And I think it's like amazing to have the opportunity not only to, you know, foster friendships in person, but like Paul said, like kind of galaxy brain out on ideas. And like I think there was something really nice about most of our speakers, if not all of them last year, stayed through the whole festival. So like shout out to Toby Shorin, who opened our main stage, and with this like galaxy brain, if we're going to talk about galaxy brain talks, that I think we all had to sit with for a few hours. Like we were like, what just happened to us? Like I feel like I just like witnessed something. And then like, you know, throughout the course of the weekend to be able to like talk to other people about that talk, I think it was really cool. And I am excited to do more of that again this year. Yeah, I feel like that was my main takeaway, is that like the internet friends are real friends.
Yeah, no, I echo all that sentiment. And ultimately, I think the most interesting things happen in sort of unexpected and planned ways, and when really smart groups of people collide and come together and create new things. I think if we all believe that culture is going to accelerate crypto to actually like reach 1 billion users, whatever. And like, it's clear the way crypto is currently positioned and marketed isn't going to get there. Like the melting apes and the vibe and the heavily masculine, like that energy is not what is going to allow for this to go really, really mainstream. And I think it's super important that spaces are created that are a little bit more unidentified and a little bit more nascent for new form factors to evolve and to emerge, and for those creatives to really step in and feel sort of comfortable. So ultimately, I think the like expected takeaway is just like a greater sense of belonging in the space. And hopefully we continue to welcome new people into Web3 and we continue to act as that bridge and demonstrating that like you do have a space here, and for folks who are culturally oriented, that crypto doesn't need to feel like, you know, the current kind of mass dominating culture that exists and pervades around it.
Yeah, totally. I wish I could attend this, but I'm in Europe somewhere. And so will you like...
There's a ticket for you if you want to come though.
I mean, it sounds so tempting. I'm like, why can't I, you know? So are you guys planning to kind of expand it, scale it, like in the future where there's going to be like fest in Europe and, you know, or maybe you haven't gotten there yet?
I think we definitely would love to, but yeah, I think we're doing it one step at a time and getting this fest into like a place where we can make sure that we're doing this every year and establishing that. But I mean, I think that's why we're also doing so many other events. I mean, this is our major tentpole event that we're doing every year. But we also, you know, we of course do events around the other conferences, and then we do a ton of member events in like every city you could think of around the world, like dinners and happy hours and just like general meetups and stuff like that. And those are kind of like the little like mini versions of this that we're constantly doing. So yeah, I think we'll definitely kind of let you know what is coming up near you, or if you want to put on something. That's the beauty of it.
We talk a lot about identity and I guess trust, safety, and all of that. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about privacy and safety. And this is an ongoing conversation in the space, right? We're trying to make the internet better and safer. And since you are coming from the Web3 perspective, I'd like to know how you are translating that into the fest. And I know this is not the first time you're organizing an event, but this is one of a kind and it's open to everyone. And in Web3, we have this issue of anonymity, which is a great thing, but sometimes it's very hard to know who you're talking to and who you're inviting. So do you have some sort of like tracking, registration forms? Like, how does it look like for anyone who is curious about this?
I think in general, this you can think of it no different than any other festival where there's like a registration and a ticket buying process, and you know, sort of everyone, you know, while we're not necessarily like, we're opening up this event to be inclusive for anyone who's interested in this to be able to come and participate. I think the majority of the makeup of the event will be FWB members, and those are folks who, you know, the community is sort of like vetted and included and are generally like really, really all around wholesome and amazing folks. I think, you know, in terms of just like overall safety, you know, we work with like one of the best production teams in the world, and they organize, you know, dozens and dozens of festivals, and we have an amazing on-site team, everything from physical safety to emergency response to all that. And then in terms of like, I guess, online and digital safety as it comes to OPSEC and trust, I think ultimately at the end of the day, you know, we've thrown hundreds and hundreds of events all over the world. We actually think that there's a unique factor here where, like, because of our cultural alignment and the values that we put forth, we attract a pretty awesome subset of an individual. And I also do think there's an interesting overlap that because everyone is like, you know, participating in this FWB ecosystem and FWB economy, that there is a shared interest in like keeping it safe and like looking out for one another. We have this kind of general like framework of like, if you see trash on the ground, like you pick it up, and definitely that exists in the FWB, both digital and physical spaces. And I think that also goes to show, like, if someone's being weird or creepy or aggressive, like, people look out for one another because we're all a part of a shared environment.
Yeah, and I think it's also different than most conferences or festivals in that, like, it's very much like 6 degrees. I mean, honestly, with Fest, it's probably 3 degrees max that every single person knows each other somehow. And so there's really a lot of like social accountability, I would say. because everyone knows each other and there's no strangers, so there's no like creepiness. There's no like, I don't think anyone ever feels unsafe, anything like that. Or I hope not, anyways, because it's something where everyone knows each other in one way or another. I mean, I had a few friends of mine who aren't in FWB who came last year, and the biggest thing they would always say to me, the thing they would all be like, hey, like, wow, it feels like everyone here is so nice. Everyone just comes up and says hi, or everyone's like, hey, are you a member? Or like, you know, he was like, the first question everyone asks is like, oh, cool. Like, so how long have you been in FWB for? It was just kind of thing where they said they had never been to a festival where everyone is so like willing to just come up and say hi and chat, because everyone just kind of assumes you're a member and wants to know like, oh, like which screen name are you that I always see all the time. So I think it makes for like a really incredible environment.
That's wonderful to know. And I must say that everyone that I have chat with on Newforum who was a part of the Friends with Benefit community is like super awesome and inspiring and all the good stuff. So is there anything else where we haven't talked about regarding the fest that we want to dive into?
There's going to be some pretty, I think, like mind-blowing talks by people like Shuman Basar, Mindy Sue, John Palmer. I think we're all really interested, and by all the people sort of who will be driving the conversations during Fest, at like, where have we come from? How did we get here? And where do we go from here? And like, a question we've really been considering through all of our programming this year is like, does technology like always evolve into usability? Like, do we need these things? And if so, why? And how do we use them? And so I think I'm really excited. Like, Joshua Citarella is going to do like a very interesting like history of the recent internet, and as is Taylor Lorenz, that will sort of present a different narrative. A lot of the narratives about tech are very deterministic. You know, it's like these platforms have ruined everything and they control us all. And it's actually, I think, going to be quite inspiring to hear from folks who are like, we shape technology as much as it shapes us, and it's in our hands now. So we have the power to kind of shape what this looks like moving forward. And if we're going to continue to build technologies that, you know, don't pay artists fairly or don't distribute ownership properly or fairly, I guess properly depends on where you stand, that like, what is the point in that?
I wanted to ask quickly, is there some sort of like a call to action? Because there's going to be a bunch of discussions and conversations going on. Are you going to gather all that? I don't know, debrief it? And, you know, how do you move forward with that? Because I feel like there's just going to be a lot of awesomeness going on there. And how do we take that into the next level?
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Like last year, Toby's talk, which I mentioned, he wrote up into an amazing essay called Life After Lifestyle that really like proliferated across the internet, which was amazing to see. We had the internet research community Water and Music come out, and they published a research report around their findings. But I'm excited to kind of push the boundaries of like of how we archive, but also continue these conversations post August 6th. I think we have some interesting workshops sort of around archival that again, don't want to reveal too much, but I think are going to be like very interesting artifacts of the weekend that I hope like continue to have life out into the world. And yeah, I'm excited to like explore new ways to present that information. I think we're all very used to like panel transcripts or YouTube talk recordings, all of which like we will have and are super useful for people who are really just wanting to like tap into the knowledge shared at the festival. But I'm excited to explore new ways of presenting and furthering that information.
I want to ask quickly, aside the fest, are you working on other projects? Maybe we can get a glimpse into that if that's okay to talk about.
Yeah. So I think, you know, the festival is definitely like one of our core annual focuses that we do every year. But like in and around that, FWB is like kind of constantly experimenting with various different outputs. I think a big focus of ours is continuing to build and develop our own social platform. So that being a space where like, you know, sort of a non-Discord space where people are able to access and see everything that's aggregated inside of the FWB ecosystem in one place. And you know, it's events that are organized by the community, that's content, that's social feed that's sort of like giving you the FWB experience in a pocket. It's a lot more of like a distilled version of what the Discord is. And then on top of that, we're always cooking up lots of different fun stuff. I think a fun thing I have even share with Paul and Katie is we're exploring bringing back FWB radio, and we've got a couple of homies who have built a really interesting little hardware device that you can plug into any sort of like laptop or console and essentially stream in real time to like a destination. And we're going to be getting that into the hands of some pretty interesting selectors and DJs and beginning to kick off sort of a small lightweight FWB radio that we want to debut at Fest. So what's fun is we just always got different folks experimenting and playing and touching with different things inside of in and around FWB. But I'll say our core focus is like continuing to grow our global events all over the world that are organized by community members, the annual once-a-year event that we do, the Fest. We're also collaborating and supporting a lot of different global brands, as that's a way that we've not only been able to bring revenue into the DAO, but also expand and sort of extend our reach and our distribution. So working with some pretty massive global fashion brands and consumer brands that we're excited to announce soon. So yeah, a lot of things happening in and around the FWB ecosystem, and sort of Fest is like at the center of it, but a lot of different things happening in and around it.
So essentially, if you're not part of Friends with Benefit, you're missing out on a lot. So I guess we could wrap up, but I wanted to know what keeps you going in Web3 in the space, like what keeps you motivated in crypto. Why are you still here?
I was never motivated by the financial side. Like I was always motivated by like new ways to collaborate and make things and distribute things. So I think, of course, throughout crypto, like there is like financial upside and downside. That's like part of it. And of course, you have to have $5 to spend $5, and so like that's only accessible to certain people, which is something that like I've always thought deeply involved in crypto and onboarding people into crypto. So I think that you need to be aware of the financial aspects of it. But I think that like crypto and blockchain is so much more than like pumping bags, for lack of a better phrase. And so for me, like the bear market, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, but like that never was my motivation for being involved. So I feel motivated by like the people that I'm surrounded by and the projects that I'm working on. That hasn't changed.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely echo that. I mean, I think the financial side of it was always kind of like the least interesting part of this. I got into it originally just be kind of like I was learning more about how artists could make more money off this, to be honest, and like how artists could be compensated. So I think the compensation side and ownership side of it is important. But I guess when I say like finance side, like I don't look at the charts or at like whatever the price of ETH or Bitcoin or anything like that is. I mean, that part doesn't really affect anything, but I just think that it's something like as everyone is continuing to live our lives online. I mean, I think it's just exciting to be able to be a part of like one of the forces that's helping to shape how that's going. Because I think for a long time, like I was in the music industry and it was really fun and exciting to be a part of kind of like the cultural side of things and the cultural future. And I think being able to merge that with, technology and everything else is just kind of like a new avenue for me personally. And it's relatively new for me in my overall career, but I think it's not anything I'm going to be abandoning anytime soon.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm just a nerd and I love like new tech shit. So I like just playing around with stuff. And I remember like the first time I connected to a wallet and I sent the transaction and just all those things were so fun. And I think I continue to experiment and see that stuff evolve, and that stuff just keeps me motivated. And obviously like the kind of new experiences that can be created around that. So I think what keeps me up is still the larger vision of like whether it's FWB or not, like what does a cultural currency look like for a group of people is just really fucking interesting to me. And so the fact that we every day get to play with that vision and pull those strings is really, really fun.
Well said. I guess what keeps me going is talking to amazing people like yourself. You're purpose driven, and that's incredible, and that's always inspiring for me. And so I want to know if you guys have any final thoughts. And then perhaps where can we find you on your social platforms, or if somebody wants to register or do something connected to the fest, what should they do?
Well, festival is FWBFest.xyz. And yeah, I think all the links to our socials and stuff are on there, or it should be. But yeah, FWB Tweets is our Twitter.
Yeah, come hang with us.
Thank you so much, Alex, Kaitlyn, and Paul. Thank you. This was really insightful, and I appreciate taking the time to chat with us. And thank you, everyone, for participating in this episode. If you want to hear more or get more information about us, you can join our Twitter, Newforum_NCO. We'll have all the links in the description below, and I will see you in our next episode. Thank you, and yeah, see you soon.